If you look at the opinion polls, support for a single state is probably in the single digits. Unless it's Eretz Israel, then it goes up a bit. But for a democratic state. And so I went back and I looked, and I asked myself the question, well, you know, history, when you look backwards, it all looks very easy and inevitable. It looks like there was only one possible path, which is the one that we perceive. But I asked the question, in South Africa, before the end of apartheid, what did whites think about the possibility of a single democratic state? And what you find is that in all the surveys that were done from the mid-1980s into the early 1990s, there was almost no support among whites for the outcome that happened, a unitary state with one person, one vote. Support for that was often around 2% or 3%. And opposition to it was often 60, 70, 80%. So if you had taken that as a guide, the advice to the ANC would have been, be realistic, be pragmatic. You cannot ask whites to commit national suicide. You cannot expect them to accept this. How can they trust you? And in fact, the language of demonization against Africans was almost identical to the language of demonization being used today against Arabs and Muslims, and in this case Palestinians, that they are ontologically incapable of democracy. And the lesson here is that you cannot be guided by the snapshot of today. The positions people are locked into today are ones that are formed very much by the present reality they live in. That we have to really do two things. One is focus on a strategy that can level the playing field, that can bring about real dialogue by changing the power imbalance. And BDS does that. Boycott, divestment, and sanctions is a very important tool to do that. It's a form of non-violent resistance that we can all take part in support of equal rights. The other part of it is to begin to develop a discourse that imagines a different future. It's not inevitable. I mean, you know, the future that people imagined in South Africa was one of bloody civil war and catastrophe. And people point to all the ongoing problems in South Africa, which are endemic to many other countries as well. And they say, well, you know, what a disappointment. But you talk to a lot of people from South Africa and they say, we avoided a Holocaust. We expected a Holocaust and we didn't get that. What we got was an opportunity to do something better, which we could still squander. And I don't think that is beyond the reach of Palestinians and Israelis. And I would end by inviting you to discuss that and to challenge me. I would like to invite the gentleman at the back, who I may have reacted to unfairly, if he would like to be the first person to make a comment.